everybody, welcome to this video on creating a codebook using Quarto and the package summary tools. This is a great way to quickly learn a lot of really useful information about your data set. And we're going to start off the same way we always do by creating a new Quarto document by going File, New File, Quarto Document. We'll call this the Create Codebook assignment. Make sure it's HTML output, and we'll press create. Again, we'll delete everything from line 6 on. And this time, let's do a couple of things with the metadata. Let's add a table of contents. TOC:true. We're going to have multiple sections in this assignment. So instead of we're going to have load packages, we're going to have import data, then we're going to have a section where we clean the data, and then a section where we make the code book. So that's at least 4 sections. We might as well have a table of contents. And we might as well learn to do it now when these documents are still fairly simple, because later in the course, when we get to more complicated assignments, we might have dozens of sections, and we'll want to be able to navigate between them quickly. And just for fun, let's add a theme to our document. I'm going to use the Minty theme. I think this one's nice and clean. And so now when we press render, first we'll save it, of course. We'll call this the Create Codebook assignment. We get, you probably notice, a slightly different font. However, let's do a couple of things here. Let's add the load packages. Let's add import data. We'll press render again. Again, a slightly different font, slightly different look and feel. We can see the table of contents now, though. It's kind of cool. But to really show off this theme, we're going to add something called a title block banner. We'll set that to true. And now when we render it, I think it looks pretty nice. So that's how we're going to set up our document. So try different themes, try turning the block banners off and on, sorry. Mess around and just see if you can make something that you're happy with. All right, so for loading packages, we need, first let's set the tabs up. So we'll do : curly brace dot panel dash tab set, and then we'll close it off with 3 colons, and then inside we'll add space for Haven, space for tidyverse, and a space for a new package called summarytools. All right, so Haven, tidyverse, summarytools. Let's render these, make sure that the code's looking good, right? So we've got our different tabs, everything's great. Now I'm gonna go to the loading packages assignment. I'm gonna copy the code for Haven. There we go. And again, you should be doing the same thing. You shouldn't be trying to memorize all of this code. Instead, you should be building up your collection of documents where you have useful code snippets, right? So when I want to load some packages, I just go to the load packages assignment, and that's how I learned to do it. When I want to import data, I'll go to the import data assignment, and that's where I'll copy the code from. For summarytools, this is new, so I'm going to replace tidyverse with summarytools. And we'll just render this to make sure this works. You can see down here, summarytools is being installed onto the computer. So we got Haven, tidyverse, summarytools, looks good. But now let's also run them here. So Haven, tidyverse, and summarytools, and that just ensures that we've got check marks for all of our packages. Let's check out summarytools though. I'm not seeing our friend summarytools, although it does look like it's there. Maybe I'll press refresh over here. That's often very useful if you don't see the package after you think you've loaded it. And here it is now, summarytools with a check mark. It's tools to quickly and neatly summarize data. So let's write that here. Tools to quickly and then neatly summarize data. Now we can import the data. So let's add some white space here. We're going to import the same Harry Potter data as the previous assignment. So looking at our Files tab, we can see that the Harry Potter data is already here. We want to import the SPSS version of it. So we'll add a, actually, I'll just copy this from the import data assignment, right? I'm going to come back here and I will just copy the code for SPSS, importing SPSS file. So here it is. I'm going to call this, but instead of calling it dataset.spss, I'm just going to call it dataset. We only have one dataset now. All right, there we go. That looks good. And let's make a new section called selecting key variables. For this, we're going to learn to use a few new things. We're going to learn to use the pipe from the tidyverse and the dplyr packages, and we're going to use the select command from the tidyverse or the dplyr packages. And this is going to be the way that we do most of our coding in the course. So the general pattern that I follow here is the pattern that we will use when we're doing most of the coding. And so I'm going to look at my environment. I'm going to see that I have a variable called dataset, and I'm going to start my coding by just typing the name of the variable. I'm going to press play, and there it is. I can look at the variable this way. Great. Now what I want is I want to select some of these variables. I want to select one of these 5-factor model question variables, and I want to select one of these Harry Potter Pottermore personality question or sorting hat questions. And finally, I want to select the coin flip variable. So that's my goal here. All right, so I started with dataset. I have dataset, right? I have dataset. It's right below here. Now I'm going to send it through the pipe. The pipe is % greater than %. So dataset is flowing through the pipe to a new command called select. And now I select the variables I want. So I want coin flip. And notice I'm not typing the whole name of the variable out. I've just typed the first few letters, and then it auto-suggested it for me. Put a comma. Now I'm going to do FFM. And look, I can pick any one I want. So I'm going to pick 5. And then I can do the Potter ones as well. And I'll pick 3. So I've just selected 3 variables. I hit play. And we go from having 90 variables to just 3. So that's great. We have all of the variables we want now, but I want to store them in a variable. I want to store them in a variable so it's in my environment and I can work with it later, just like dataset. So I'm going to use the right assignment operator. Earlier we used the left assignment operator. Now we use the right assignment operator. And I'm going to save this in a variable called 3 variable, or let's call it differently. Let's just call this dataset dot 3 variables. This is maybe the best descriptive name I can come up with right now. And when I run this, now instead of printing it below or on the screen, it saves it into the environment. So if I click on it, there it is, just those 3 variables. However, I like to see it below and have it in my environment. Like I want to have my cake and eat it too. So to do that, I'm going to place this whole string of commands inside parentheses like that. Now when I run it, it prints to the screen and it saves it to the environment. So I get the best of both worlds now. All right, so I selected the key variables. Now let's make a new section called create codebook. Add the chunk, and for this, it's a tricky, complicated, very specific line of code here that we won't unpack too much, but it's just a matter that you just need to know this is the line of code that you'll use, and you can use it for any thing in your environment. Any variable in your environment you can use here. So first off, we're going to start with print. And what makes this complicated is not that the function itself is complicated. That's not the case. It's making it work with the web pages is what makes things a little bit complicated. So we're starting with print because we want to print things to the web pages. What do we want to print? Well, we want to print the summary. So df summary, the data frame summary. We want a summary of our data frame. And which data frame do we want the summary of? It's dataset.3 variables. Now, just from trial and error, I have found that it's better to sort of shrink the size of the graph a little bit. It's maybe a little bit too big in normal circumstances. So we're going to shrink it to just 0.75. That's just from trial and error, my own personal preference. You can change this number to whatever you want it to be and see how it looks on the web page. And finally, we have to tell it, hey, how do you want to print this? Well, print it as, we're going to write method equals, this will seem counterintuitive at first, or maybe arbitrary at first, render. But remember, when we press render, we get a web page. And so here, we're just basically saying, hey, make this like for the web for us, okay? So I'm going to press play right here. And it looks interesting here. It definitely looks interesting. We're getting all the information, right? But it's going to look really good when we press render. So we're going to press render right now. And you'll see how great this codebook looks. So we've got our load packages section, we've got our import data section, we've got our selecting key variables section, and now we've got this create codebook section. And here's this wonderful table. For each variable, we learn the question that was asked. So participants were asked to flip a coin. They were asked, I see myself as someone who is original, comes up with new ideas. Or on part or more, just pick the moon or the stars, which do you want? And for all of these, we're getting really cool information. We're getting things like the mean, the standard deviation, the min, the median, the max, the IQR. We're getting all this really great information for these variables. We know how many are missing. We get a graph. We can see if it's normally distributed or not. For example, here's a problem I'm just noticing. Participants were told to flip a coin, but it looks like a lot of them didn't flip the coin and just said heads, right? So many, like, unless it's you know, something strange in the state of Denmark or something here, this is very unlikely to have happened. So we had a lot of participants who maybe weren't following instructions in this little study. But that's it. That's how you create a code book. And again, think how useful this will be when you're writing the method section of your paper. You can find out the gender breakdown, the age breakdown, race breakdown. All of these great demographics variables are going to be easily summarized for you. And you'll also be able to detect if some of your dependent variables or independent variables are not normally distributed.